Morning, Tigard. It's Friday morning and a little early, but here Council President Goodhouse and I are here to take your questions and brief you on some of the things that are happening in Tigard. Councilor President, you want to say hello?
Good morning, Council President John Goodhouse. We're here to answer some questions, go over some topics, and we'll talk about a few things, but go ahead and just leave questions in the comments. We'll answer those. We have Kent Wyatt, our communication director. Is that your position? Manager here feeding us questions. He'll also respond to any links or anything like that we want as well in those comments as well. And we have.
So I guess the first thing we want to remind you all is we have an election May 19th, and there is still time to mail in your ballot. Postage is free for the first time, so we hope you will all get on and check your ballot out and vote and get your ballot in. We do have a ballot box here in the City Hall parking lot, as is typical for every election. So if you'd rather drive through our parking lot and drop it off there, that's available to you as well. I think if you mail your ballot by next Wednesday, elections should receive it. After that, drop it off in that ballot box by 8 o'clock on the 19th, and your vote will be counted. So we really want to encourage you to vote.
Yes, please vote. And as always, I'll have Kent put my contact information in there, my cell phone and city email in there. If anyone has any questions about the levy or anything on the ballot, please go ahead and reach out to me to ask that, or ask today as well.
Or I'll have Kent do the same thing. So if you want to talk to me, that information will be available online. Love to chat with you if you have questions. So really quickly about the levy, it's a 5-year levy for police services. It's limited to police services, and if approved, it would fund 8 additional police officers to increase our neighborhood patrols, 1 additional school resource officer. Right now we have 2 school resource officers, 1 in the high school and 1 covering both middle schools. With this additional resource officer, we would be able to have 1 at each middle school, and also deal with the elementary schools that feed into each middle school. So we'd be able to connect with a lot more of our students. And then the other thing that the levy would fund is crisis intervention training and de-escalation training for all of our officers. And given the times we're in, unfortunately, a lot more of our police calls are to respond to folks in crisis. So this training would equip our officers to be better prepared to respond to individuals on an individual basis that need some assistance when they're in need.
And with the levy, just kind of a couple questions that have came up or people have talked about. We've heard that people ask, well, why during these times right now are we putting a levy or asking for more officers when people are unemployed? When we first with council have been looking at this for about a year or two, as far as a couple of years, we've had a shortfall with understaffed police in the department, and we put this on the ballot, and we decided to do this back in December, at the beginning of the year. We didn't have any idea or be able to foresee that this was going to happen, but something we've been dealing with in the city of Tigard with the low staffing of police. We have 5 patrol districts in the city of Tigard, and at any time we have 3 to 4 officers patrolling those 5 districts. And so why that's a problem is if we had to deal with 2 priority calls at the same time, which did happen last week, we don't have enough officers to respond to both of those, contain those crime scenes, be able to deal with those properly. And so this measure would, like as Councilor Newton said, would add 8 officers on there, which would give more officers out there patrolling neighborhoods, giving more time to be able to spend more time talking, spending more time on a call. And we're looking at, for the average house, about $6 a month. So if we're not looking for a huge increase, it's something that we've, for a long time, we've been really conservative with our money with the city of Tigard. A lot of the cities around us and in the region all have safety levies that already pay for police on top of their higher tax rates that they collect. So the city of Tigard has been really good stewards of the citizens' money, but this is a time where, unfortunately with the times right now, we do need these service for police, especially during these times. We've seen an increase in crimes, vandalisms, thefts, break-ins, and a lot more like that. So this time is something we need a lot more of these officers out there on the street. have any questions?
One question. So, community question, what is Plan B if the levy doesn't pass, is a question that was asked. That's a really good question, and at this point, we don't have a specific Plan B. Council President Goodhouse can address this as well, but this is a priority for the City Council, so if the levy doesn't pass, we will need to address, as a council, how we're going to move forward to provide these police services. As Council President Goodhouse said, there are other communities that do fund police services specifically with additional levies or fees. Again, we're going to have to take a hard look at where we are and what we can do to meet this high priority that we have to get our police adequately staffed and trained.
As far as the Plan B, I really hope we don't have to deal with a Plan B. A couple of months ago, we did the State of the City, and the chief spoke with the mayor and was talking about how being understaffed really has an effect on morale for police officers. If they get sick and they need to take a day off, if there's not enough officers on there to cover a shift, they're working overtime, so they're not on their best performance. It's hard to recruit or bring new officers in. So when we do have someone retire, it's hard to hire new officers into a department that's understaffed, doesn't have that support. It's going to be a hard decision on what to take a look at and what to do. We don't really have any areas to cut or anything, so it may have to be coming out for a levy again or taking a look at it again. It's not something you want to keep doing and coming out to the voters, but it's something that all the council is really working hard on and trying to answer questions and being out in the community, because it's something we desperately need right now. And
it is a priority for us. Another community questions, when will businesses be allowed to reopen? That's a really good question. Governor Brown presented at a press conference yesterday her guidance for what she's calling reopening Oregon. So there are some guidelines. Council President Goodhouse and I have been on the League of Oregon Cities calls every Friday, where all the cities in the state can find out more information about what's happening in terms of moving towards reopening the state. The city of Tigard, in terms of city businesses, we're able to conduct a lot of businesses remotely. And I know local businesses, the plan will allow local businesses to open provided they can maintain that social distancing. So there's going to be some guidelines, I think, coming out today. They'll be on the Oregon Health Authority website that talks about if you're a restaurant or if you're a personal services businesses like a salon, what guidance you need to be able to reopen your business. The other thing I will note is the governor is looking at plans to reopen county by county. So those counties in the state that have had fewer cases of COVID-19 and are seeing the cases in the decline and are prepared to deal with any increases or any new cases in their medical facilities will likely be reopening more quickly than counties with more cases and an increasing or not a stable number of cases. So our emergency operations center at the city is in daily contact with Washington County and the Oregon Health Authority about the conditions here, and the council at our meetings is having discussions about how to move this forward. So it's top of mind for us, and we'll get information out on guidance for businesses as soon as it's available.
And as Councilor Newton said, it's a day-to-day changing as far as when businesses will be able to reopen. We're working with the League of Oregon Cities, talking on calls regularly, what we can do to safely reopen certain businesses, or how we can encourage existing businesses that are open or slowly opening. The city does have a website that lists what businesses are open right now. We'll go ahead and post that. What we do is we encourage that people do support the businesses that are opening, especially with the Paycheck Protection Program coming out, and a lot of people getting that money. A lot of businesses that were on that kind of on the fence of whether or not to be open or not with that money have now opened or part-time opened. And so what we always do is recommend people frequent those places, whether you use DoorDash, do a curbside pickup. Support those businesses that are slowly opening. That's what's going to be important. We're trying to get those out there, get the word of what businesses are open, how to support them. That's the biggest thing we can really do. And bit by bit, as we get more details and data, we're really pushing to get things open safely in a safe manner. and to support those businesses that are opening.
Yeah, I'm regularly doing a restaurant takeout. I'm supporting local dry cleaners. Any business I can that's operating, I'm supporting as much as I can. So anyway, next question: how will COVID impact the city's proposed budget? New programs, cuts? That is a really good question. All of the council budget committee members have the budget to review, and I believe it's available online now. Kent is nodding, yes. And we'll talk a little bit about some opportunities for you to get involved in that here in a minute. But, one of the concerns that we're going to have is how we move forward, and how the impacts on our community are probably not going to be known for several months. So I believe the COVID impact will have will impact our budget, and we may be looking at how we move forward in terms of programming to make sure that we have funds available as we move through the coming months to address needs in our community as they come up. So I'll say that. But yeah, we'll be having to look at it really hard. With
the budget, as things are going day by day, and not knowing how long this is going to last, we don't know the overall long-term impacts kind of the budget. Right now, short-term, that the areas that are being affected is our transit lodging tax. That's when people frequent hotels. There's a certain part you pay on the hotel bill that goes to the city, that does give funds to the city. The other part is the gas tax. With a lot of people not driving, we're getting less gas tax. So the two areas we're seeing right now is less transit lodging tax coming in and less gas tax, which funds road projects, road maintenance. And in Tiger, we try to keep the roads either repaved, slurry seal, or things like that. During the summertime, around now, you'll see a lot of the different neighborhoods that have projects going on. With less gas tax coming in, we may not be able to do as many projects, slurry seal, keep the road maintenance up. Those are a couple of areas we're looking at right now. But going down the road, we're going to have to look at what other impacts there are. I know the school district's being hit hard as far as their funding from the state and the state level and the county. So we're going to have to see how it trickles down, what affects. The one big area, at least, is that we don't have a sales tax, so we're not really being drastically impacted by that at the city level. So where you might have other states or communities around the nation that are really drastically being affected by the income tax, sales tax. At least that's one area we're not doing, but we still don't know how the impacts can happen through the time. We do have, and Kent will post it, our finance director, Toby LaFrance, is going to be doing a couple of sessions where if the public would like to talk about the budget, have any questions, make any suggestions in more depth, there's going to be some couple different virtual meeting times. You can meet with him, talk with him. The budget process too is going to be, I think, are we going to be streaming the budget cycle itself? Is that going to be available?
The budget meeting.
Meeting.
Comment ahead of time.
Yeah, comment ahead. So if there's any comments or anything like that, there'll be a link there where people can either email comments in or suggestions as well, what they like to see in the budget. And please do take a look at the budget, take a look at what the details are in there. It's something every year that people should take a look at and get involved and give comments.
And then really quickly, I want to say the other impact on the budget is going to be, our city council has looked at some programs to assist folks that are unemployed for relief from utility bills, businesses relief on some of the permits and things that they have to pay to the city, and also the Tiger Cares and the RAFT program that we funded in order to be able to continue to provide assistance to our community. We are going to be mindful. We have to be mindful about how we allocate funds in order to preserve some for future assistance if needed. Kevin Robinson says, thank you both and the rest of the council and city staff for all you do. Thank you for that. Can I submit a permit request for a small project at a school property, installing a dirt infield and backstop? Are those being processed? Permits are being processed. You can go online and maybe Mr. Wyatt can post a link there on that. Since it's school property, obviously you will need to work with the school district on getting a permit to do work on school property, but we are processing permits. So if you have something that needs a permit, please check our online permit process page, and you can file for a permit.
And as Councilor Newton said, I was going to go back to the assistance part where we are looking at ways to help residential and businesses. We did the Tiger Cares and the RAF program, as you mentioned, but we're always looking for suggestions. So if there's something that people feel like maybe we missed or something we can do, we're trying to find creative ways right now too. Is with having a limited budget and limited reserve, we were able to do a little bit of help, but now we're trying to look at more creative ways where maybe if we delayed something or tacked on payments later on, where maybe we deferred the payments for a couple of months and then you added them on. Anything that people can kind of think of for suggestions or areas that maybe people feel that there's a need that the city isn't doing, please let us know. That way we can take a look at it. All we can do is basically what we think of or we can create, but if we haven't heard of it or don't know about it, we can't fix it or come up with a solution.
Yeah, again, anything that is difficult for you now, anything you're struggling with that the city might be able to help with, we'd appreciate hearing from you so we can talk as a council and budget committee about ways to support. We got a positive comment for the supporting the kids, the request for the improvements to the field. Thank you for that. Thank you, Connie, for your compliments to the city, and we appreciate that. Her question is, what planning has been done to provide additional recreational space as the weather continues to improve? Healthy street plans that provide additional space for walking and riding safely on streets seems like a good fit for our city's goal to be the most walkable community in the Northwest. How can I support making that a reality? Well, I would say letting us know that that's a priority for you is the first step, so thank you for that. We are going to need to look at that as we find out what reopening our community looks like. I know yesterday what the governor talked about was limiting numbers in terms of gatherings. Right now we've got basically a stay-at-home order, and I think for phase one of the reopenings they're looking at groups of 25 or less instead of the stricter numbers we have now. So might be something to think about in terms of areas around parks or communities that have links to parks, how we might be able to open up some more walking paths or streets for connections there. But I appreciate the comment. Do you have anything to say about that?
I was going to say, right now, even though businesses and some things are closed, that I see a lot more people out walking about. So even though the playgrounds, you can't play in the playgrounds because we can't disinfect those or clean those, and the dog parks are still hard. We're trying to figure out how to open those without people with dogs getting close to each other and chances of people of spreading COVID. Those are hard, but there's still parks are open, so please do walk the trails, bike our streets. We have a lot of areas where we have sidewalks and bike lanes, and walk up there. I've seen when I've been out walking or so forth that people are just on one side of the road, the other side of the road. We have plenty of trails. A lot of our trails on Fan Oak Creek trails that go around are 6 feet wide, so there is plenty of space for people to get around. You can go to the different parks and go play in the grass areas. It just the playground equipment and the dog parks are off limits. So I do encourage people to get out and be active, and it's just a great way to be see your neighborhoods, get rid kind of see people from a distance. At least keep your distances, wear your protective gear, and get out there. And as we can, we'll slowly open. And I know the biggest thing is really that people have been asking about the dog park, and we're still trying to figure out what way we can do that. And any suggestions people have of maybe a safe way we can open that, we'd be all ears for that as well.
Right. Okay. How have you been personally impacted by COVID-19? Well, I'm limiting my errands. I go to the grocery store once a week with my mask on. I am trying to support local businesses as much as I can. I am limiting the number of people that I'm regularly in contact with, wearing my mask out in public. I am spending a lot of time on council business, reading information, trying to keep current on what's going on in the state and the county about the COVID-19, thinking about ways that we can move forward to support our community, trying to talk to folks about how this is impacting them and what we might do to assist the community as we move forward. And then I do have a niece who's using my dining room as a home office, so I am helping out my family where I can, and I take care of her daughter a little bit too to help her as she and her husband are trying to navigate both being home and working. So that's me. What about you?
As far as me being personally affected, as Councilor Newton said, being an elected official, there's a lot more to focus on now. I'm with being part of the League of Oregon Cities, but also being part of the National League of Cities, on a lot more phone calls, a lot more conference calls, really trying to get support for the city, the state, and the federal level, working on these different packages, trying to get businesses more of the money with the PPP programs, working with people, trying to help people with unemployment benefits, giving people contact information, as well as how to get through to the employment department, really talking to people and hearing what's going on and trying to find solutions to their needs, making sure that Tigard is taken care of and the state is taken care of as well, while on top of doing the council stuff, and we're also focusing on the levy. So it's there's been a lot more to focus on and adjust to with this time. But my biggest thing is really that there's just so much need out there, and trying to get out there and talk to everyone, support the businesses. And that's what I've been spending a lot of time with COVID, is just getting all those resources together, help people, being an ear to hear what's going on, and be a conduit to the state and federal level.
I will say one thing I miss. Those of you that know me know I love going door to door, talking to folks, being out, having conversations with folks about Tigard and our community, and I haven't been able to do that because that's not prudent right now, so I do miss that, getting out and talking to folks directly. We have a question about, does the city provide a list of volunteer opportunities with required skill sets, experience, age limits, days and hours? Lots of good people with extra time to support small city needs. And Mr. Wyatt's posted that Essential Needs Hub at Northwest Christian Church, which is on Paul Boulevard, kind of right across from the city's library, needs volunteers and donations. So maybe Mr. Wyatt could he's posted a connection there, and so I know they're doing a lot of good work in the community to provide for folks' needs out there, including some support to our officers with PPE. So,
and on that note too, that as kind of it goes in line with being affected by COVID, there's usually a lot of events we go to as council, a lot of fundraisers, things like that. A lot of those things are not being taken place in person, and on the switch to doing those online. And so if you normally have gone and supported an organization or something like that before, take a look. A lot of them are doing their auctions or their fundraisers online. So please take a look at those, because we have a lot of nonprofits that, with a Good Neighbors Center or a lot of different places like that, where Family Promise,
Six Community Partners for Affordable Housing, a lot of them. Yeah.
A lot of them that are taken care of, where they've seen huge jumps as far as they're providing hotel vouchers for families that have been displaced by this and have to stay at a hotel, or assistance for rent or utilities. So a lot of those nonprofits really need the extra resources right now. If there's any items to donate to those organizations, jump on there and do. We see an online option. If not, I don't know if the city has any of those really listed for some of the nonprofits, but a lot of times social media is a great way to take a look at it and see who's doing their online auctions, and take care of them and help them out. Those are great ways. Or call them, see how you can support and help out. They may need some staff time, someone to answer a phone, someone to help out. So it's always reach out and kind of see what you can find. The city, I think, might have some on there as far as ones we've worked with or programs we've done. So you can always reach out to them and say, hey, how can I help? What can I give? Every little bit helps. And I think always the best part too is that in your neighborhood, if there's someone that maybe is elderly and they can't get to the store, see if there's a way through next door you can offer to help go get food for someone, or keep an eye on someone, or help out, or if there's anything you can do.
Walk their dog.
Yeah, walk their dog. If someone maybe hasn't started their car for a couple of weeks and they're elderly, maybe they might need help jumping in the car or figuring out how to get started when they go back out to the store. So I think that's the biggest part too, is just kind of going back to how things used to be, is having your phone numbers for your neighbors, being in contact with them, just keeping an eye on everyone. It's something good to be prepared for if there's ever a natural disaster. So this is kind of a time to really prep and get to know your neighbors a little bit more through virtually or through next door.
Okay, the next question, why do we need to add more police officers? Well, that's a really good question, and we alluded to it earlier. when I got on council, I was really impressed with Chief McAlpine's monthly reports to us. They're very data driven. There's a lot of information about the types of calls the officers are taking and how our officers are spending their time. And a couple of things struck me. First of all, Tigard feels like a really safe community. It is a safe community. And a lot of our person-to-person calls, like assault and burglary, were on the decline. But what the calls that were on the incline were increasing were calls around what we call behavioral health. These are calls to places where people are in mental crisis, or there's some other kind of domestic violence or some sort of call like that officers are having to go to, and they're priority 1, priority 2 calls that we need to respond to immediately. And we can't send just one car to those calls. We've got to send two cars until the issue is assessed and they know what needs to happen. Resolving those calls can take a couple of hours sometimes if somebody is in crisis and needs to go to the hospital or something. So when you've got 3 or 4 officers on a shift, and we've got 5 patrol districts, and you've got 1 or more of those priority 2 calls coming in, we just don't have the resources available to be covering the city, patrolling the city, spending time out doing community policing and those kinds of things. So for me, looking at the types of calls and the changing types of calls really made an impression on me. Our officers need to have backup. Our community wants to be safe. We want our officers available to be out addressing needs in our neighborhoods, but we just didn't have the resources. We just don't have the resources now to be able to do that. So for me, that was primary. The other thing is we did a performance audit of our services, and this was conducted by a national firm that does performance audits for communities throughout the United States. I even think they do some international work. And the most important, the biggest sort of what I call the heaviest lift in that report was the need for additional police officers in order to respond to the kinds of services that the Tigard community needs now to stay safe. And they recommended adding 8 officers, and they recommended doing that in 2020. So that also made an impression on me as a city councilor. So it's a top priority for me, for our community, and it's a need that the city, the community looks for the city to provide is police services to keep us safe. So I don't know if you have anything to add.
As Councilor Newton said, that performance audit is a huge part. We went out for about a year and a half ago for a levy, and all people were wondering, well, why we were doing it, where we came up with the numbers. We've had the need, but the performance audit specifically said that we needed 8 officers and a school resource officer. So it's just not us saying that it's something with an independent firm taking a look. And what I want to kind of also go over as well is why we need the officers. To kind of recap again, is back in the 90s we got locked into one of the lowest tax rates in the region. What happened with Measure 5 and 50 is it took at that moment whatever city's tax rate was, it locked them in at that amount. And the city of Tigard happened to be running really lean at that time, while we had other cities around the area that had other levies out there or bonds or things like that. And what happened is that we got locked into it. So we got locked in at $2.51 per assessed thousand. For example, where Beaverton next to us got locked into around $6 or $8 per assessed thousand. Because what happens is if you had debt on the books or bonds, once they got paid off, you still kept that rate. But we were running lean, we didn't have anything out there, so we weren't able to keep up with expenses as it went on. And for a long time, we've needed to have more officers. And why that makes a difference is if we have 2 priority calls, as we did about a week ago, you can't have as much effort on there. You don't have enough officers to do the containment field. So we had a theft where someone stole a purse. The officers tracked them down. They were in the process of handcuffing them, and somehow the suspect got away. But also at the same time, there were shots fired from an apartment. So the officers had to go respond to that while this person that was handcuffed was actually on the loose around downtown Tigard. And the problem with that is we just didn't have enough officers to be able to go search for that person, or also go respond to the call where there were shots fired. There's also been cases where we've been told by council or to council where if there's a domestic violence case where the person's left and they have to go find them. We don't have enough officers to safely do a containment field to actually find the person, or in other instances like that where they basically have foot they go. We don't have enough officers to safely find the person, arrest them. And what also happens when we have enough officers is they're going from call to call to call. It's just like everyone in a normal job. You usually have a lunch break. You have a break between in the morning and the afternoon. If an officer is going from call to call to call, they're not having time to really recharge the batteries, have a chance to drive around neighborhood patrol. If they're going from call to call, they're not providing the proper service. Plus, they're not getting everywhere they can. And the biggest part is if we have two priority calls at the same time, we don't have enough officers to get to it. And we've heard people say, well, why isn't the county or some of the cities around us jump in and help out? Well, one, we have our police services, so it's to take care of Tigard, but if they happen to have a call at the same time, they may not be available. A lot of times we've been lucky when we've had a big call happen and there's been officers available from Beaverton or Tualatin or the county, but what happens if they have a call on the opposite end of their patrol district or their city, and then they have to get to a part of Tigard, and as Tigard grows, it takes a long time to get from one side of Tigard to the other side. So that's why we need more officers really out there patrolling, taking more time with citizens to go through what happened. If you call an officer and you were just burglarized, you'll make sure that the officer has time to really talk about it and go through it rather than feel like they showed up to take a report and left real quick. That's a huge part of it. But the biggest part is having eyes on the streets, patrolling those neighborhoods, going through the side streets, going through businesses. We're starting to see more vandalism. We're seeing a lot more smash and grabs. The one big thing we were worried about in the police department is when we were going out for this levy, if we really talked about the details of what's going on in Tigard and how little officers we have. We had the State of the City back a while ago, and the mayor did a mayor walk-in. We went around and talked to people and asked, how many officers do you think are on at any time? And people varied from anywhere from 15 to 100 officers on at one time. And the mayor said to one person, do you realize we only have 3 to 4 officers on at any time? He goes, what do you think about that? He goes, well, if I was a criminal, I think that'd be great. And that's the problem with criminal or people from other cities. They're realizing, Tigard doesn't have very many officers, so it's almost open season on Tigard where I can go commit a crime, where I can go break into cars, break into homes. We've had a couple home invasions that have happened where we're just having calls that haven't really normally happened, that aren't happening in Tigard, and we're worried that get too much of the facts out there that we have limited officers is going to show people that we aren't protected. We are a safe neighborhood, safe community. People look out for each other, and we want to keep it that way. And adding the 8 additional officers will help keep Tigard safe.
So what do we got? I thought we had another question. Oh, the other question was, how will the census affect Tigard? Well, it's interesting. Tigard is now officially over 50,000 people. We're close to 54 at last count. The census will I'm sure, increase that number. But the money that we get from the federal government on education for the Community Development Block Grant Program, which funds a lot of services to the community and a lot of infrastructure projects, if you're a community of over 50,000, you're entitled to get direct funding from the federal government. Right now, the city of Tigard, based on our last census, we are part of the Washington County Consortium, and so we work with the other cities in Washington County to the money is received by the county, and then it's allocated based on applications to the various communities in Washington County that are 50,000 or less. The city of Tigard actually just applied to be a joint entitlement community with Washington County. So now we're going to be eligible to receive part of that funding directly to the city of Tigard. And why is that good? That's a good thing because we have an affordable housing plan, for example. We can use the funds that we get directly from the Community Development Block Grant Program to fund Tigard programs directly rather than going through the county. County has a good process in place, but allowing us to receive the funds directly would allow us to tailor those available resources to programs that are important to the Tigard community.
With the census, and that also is important right now, is that with the census, we were planning on a lot more events, or usually with the census, a lot of door-to-door was happening as far as to get the proper census count. And with that changed, with people not building the door-to-door whole events, it's really important that people do complete the census, that we do, you make sure you talk to neighbors, families, friends, make sure that people have completed it, because as Councilor Newton said, the more numbers that are counted in Tiger means more resources, more money we get from the federal government, more money we get for roads and parks and for our lower income areas, education. It may even mean another congressional seat in the area, where we have another voice back in D.C. So the more we have, really, that's why it matters every single person to be counted, because if we're trying to provide resources for people, and if we only have 40,000 that are counted, but we actually have a population of 55,000, we're getting less portion of that money to really take care of the need we have. So that's why it matters to have every single person counted, and make sure people fill that out. And again, any of that information that is filled out is confidential. It is not used for any of the resources. It's not going to be used for immigration. It's not going to be used for anything else like that. It's just going to be basically to do a head count, see how many of the city. That way we get all the proper resources that we are needed, and to take care of the city.
So everybody counts, so please fill out your census if you haven't already done so. It doesn't take very long, so encourage you to do that. Okay, back to the levy. There's a question, how much would the levy increase my property tax bill? Well, we have a calculator on the city's website that you can go to. Mr. Wyatt will post a link to that, and you can actually quickly calculate the impact on your own specific property. But as an example, we're using a typical Tigard residence house that's the market value would be about $470,000, but the assessed value, remember your assessed value is less than your market value, of about $280,000, and these are round numbers, would pay about $81 a year, which is about $6.75 a month. So that's an average, what an average house in Tigard would pay. But I really do encourage you, if you have access, to go online and use that tax calculator, and you can figure it out exactly for your own property.
And that's what, a good point, because we've heard before in past levies where people say, well, you're going off a $288,000 home. Well, my home's worth $600,000, and as Councilor Newton said, there's a difference between the market value and the assessed. That's something that happened back in the 90s. Is it went back and it went off the assessed value of what the home is, and that can only increase no more than 3%. And there's another part of where I've heard people ask. It says, well, on the ballot language, it says it can increase by 3%, and that's just something where state law says you have to write that, where this levy could increase your property taxes by 3% or more. But if most people that I've talked to, most people that have entered their address into that calculator, they're looking at around 1.2, 1.4%, 1.2 or 1.4% increase. So you're looking at a nominal increase, and actually a lot of people I've talked to, it's been under that. So you're really looking at $5 or $6 a month of an increase to get 8 additional officers, a school resource officer, and the mental health and de-escalation training for all of our sworn officers. Right now we only have a couple of them. They're getting that training, and every year we send maybe a couple. So if we were to continue the plan we are doing right now, it would take maybe a decade or two before all the sworn officers are really trained. With this program, we'd be able to have all the officers trained quickly. And in situations, as Councilor Newton said, we're getting a lot more of those society crimes where people either have a mental health issue, or there's a scene where maybe it's really out of control, and we want to make sure those officers can handle that, and then they're trained in a proper way to see what's going on. If someone has a mental health issue, really how to de-escalate that situation and handle that call in a safe manner, and have the skills to do it. We want, in a sense, sometimes kind of fair to send our officers there unprepared for a situation. Maybe they may not have all the details or know how to handle it and all the skills. So it's really, that's a huge part of it. But the as I've heard some people say online, that's almost a steal of a deal for, about the cost of a latte a month to get what we need for proper staffing in the city of Tigard for police.
Okay, the next question, is the Universal Plaza still going on as planned? Well, the project hasn't been halted. We did have plans for the Universal Plaza to do some outreach with the community that would would have involved folks getting together on the site. And so I'm sure we'll be getting updates as part of the budget committee and that when the staff presents their work programs for the different projects, you know, how that's going to move forward. We do want to get the community involved in the design and use of that space, and so depending on how we move forward with engaging the community as a result of the COVID-19 situation, you know, we'll probably have to take a look at how we move forward. So at this point, we haven't stopped the project, but we are going to need to kind of look at how we move forward on getting the community involved in the design. So.
And one point on that also with the Universal Plaza is a lot of times people have asked questions about, well, how are you doing that project when other needs are needed in the city or put it elsewhere? And we kind of call it either the color of money or the different buckets of money. When a project's done or there's different money collected, that money has to go to where it comes from. So if there's money collected from gas tax, it has to go to the roads. With Downtown Tigard, it's an urban renewal district, so if there's money collected for that, it has to be spent back in Downtown Tigard on projects for Downtown Tigard. So we can't take money from our urban renewal district and put that into funding water or giving it to business or give it to police. And so that's the biggest thing. We've had a lot of people during this levy and say, well, why don't you just take, instead of doing the Universal Plaza, pay for police? Or we've had people say, well, since the school district has laid people off, why don't you take that money and use it for police? And that's a separate different money because that's a separate entity. But when we have a project, if we're doing road repayments, we're doing trails. A lot of these projects have been in the work for years and years, where Universal Plaza has been done for years and years in the works. So that money is sitting there from resources that it can only be spent for that project. So it's something we may hold off on, but it's always something we always like to go back and circle around to and kind of point out that the money that was collected, and the reason we do that too is for transparency, where you always hear in government, well, we want to make sure, you know, if we do this, how do we know that money's going to go towards something like that? So that's why we have those money is allocated. It can only be spent on those. And the same thing with the levy is that money can only be spent on those officers. We have to do exactly what's written in that ballot language. It's a legal document, so we have to hire the 8 officers, school resource officer, and do the mental health de-escalation training. And so the same thing with all the projects in Tigard. People may see over the summer things happening in projects and want to know, well, the city seems to be doing good, or here's all these projects going on. Well, these are funds that we collected years and years ago that have been sitting there waiting to do these projects, or we've collected. So what's really going to tell is a couple years from now or 2 years from now is, you know, will we have those funds that we thought for future projects? That's what's going to be affected is the future ones. But ones that we've had part of our project list have been worked on for years will be completed and be worked on.
Next question, what are businesses using Tigard Cares grants for, and how do we know the money is spent as intended? I'm going to let Council President Goodhouse answer that because he worked a lot with the business community on this.
Yeah, so we have a list, and Kent will post a list of what companies have got the Tigard Cares. A lot of the grants, just the basic amounts where a lot of people got maybe $1,500. And so you're talking about businesses that you know, had 50, 70, 90% drops in revenue. So $1,500 went to you know, paying rent, utilities, maybe paying the last part of a payroll. I don't think we're asking exactly the in-depth detail what they spend it on. We did a lot of businesses did qualify for loans as well, and of those ones, I'm not sure if we had. If we're asking how they spend it or not. I know that with the Paycheck Protection Program through the federal government that they do have to show that they spent that on employees. But some of the businesses have had such huge losses that the amount of money that they either got from the grant or from the loans don't even go to cover what the expenses they are and what they have to do or what they need. So as far as going more in depth as far as what they the use for is it's going to be utilities and rent and payroll or maybe you know, just getting by to get enough inventory to stay open.
And they are going to be submitting reports, and so we will get a report back in terms of how they use the funds. And when they applied, as Council President Goodhouse commented, there were specific things that were eligible. So in their application, they would indicate what they were going to use the funds for. So that's how that worked. How has reduced parking impacted businesses and sales on Main Street? I haven't heard directly about reduced parking necessarily. I've heard a little bit about how parking spaces are being used. Down on Main Street, there are some businesses that doesn't take you very long to go in and out, and then there are some businesses where you might stay a little longer. So I've heard a little bit about folks trying to, navigate, negotiate that. And I hear that the businesses are working that out among themselves. I don't know, Council President, if you've heard anything about the impacts, but other than, having spaces right in front of a business not available because of a new business, those kinds of things, that's the only issue that I've seen.
And with parking, and it's kind of right now with the whole kind of COVID and not as many businesses open, we do there's a lot more parking available now. But before this happened, we did work with the council. We did change parking requirements, so people could only park for about 2 hours downtown. What we're trying to do is trying to make it so there was a lot more in and out traffic where someone would park all day. We're trying to give it a lot more availability. We found a lot of business owners too that would them or their employees would park in front of businesses. So what we were trying to do with the 2 hour parking and kind of parking enforcement was to get a little more of a turnover of vehicles. There was long-term areas for people to park where they would walk, which is great for people to park and then they walk around downtown Tigard. So the program was kind of getting full in effect before this whole pandemic happened, so we didn't really get a full feel of it, but we were trying to work on ways to make it so people could kind of come in, get what they need and leave, and if they needed to park, there's different areas. And we're trying to look down the road as far as changes to the whole kind of downtown area, or even off of Burnham Hall, trying to find some area where we can do a parking structure that would allow, at least from a distance, people to be able to park and walk into downtown Tigard. What I've been seeing right now a lot more though is people using really the trails to walk into downtown Tigard, come and frequent the businesses and leave. And I think a lot of people before this didn't realize how connected the trails were, where you could half a mile from your home walk into downtown Tigard if you're within distance, or park down the street and really walk around. We have the Heritage Trail, which is next to Symposium, which just got finished before all this. It's got a great history of Tigard. You can walk along, kind of get little placards that talk about what's gone on in Tigard, what's happened. There's a lot of great areas around downtown Tigard that I think if people just pulled in real quick and picked up their dry cleaning and left, they realize there's some great restaurants. A lot of restaurants are open. There's even a place called Curiosities where you can go get kind of a flea market and go. Right now they have a kind of a Price is Right numbers on the front, but we have a board game place. We can go buy board games down there. When things back open, we have an escape room, ping pong place. There's all kinds of places downtown Tigard for people to get onto Main Street and park and walk around. So I think with the parking, what we're really trying to do is get people to get down there, walk around a little bit more, see what we have downtown Tigard.
And I think after the COVID-19, impacts are, where we get on the other side of this, our police will be able to do a little bit more in terms of adjusting to the enforcement plan that we originally were working on before this started. So hope that helps. Are red light cameras active? Yes, they are. We are, I think we're doing warnings still. Is that correct? No. Okay, we're issuing tickets. So yeah, they're active. Obviously, there's not as much traffic, and so we are not seeing, as many folks getting citations. But again, the point of the red light cameras is to get people to stop at the red light, and so if we can get the word out that those are up and working and get people to comply and stop, that's really what we're after, is to get compliance. So
yeah, with the red light cameras, there was a bit of a confusion where months and months ago the cameras were on. We had a warning period. The cameras came on, and then there was an article where they were off for about a month, where there was something between the vendor we did and ODOT where there was some things that had to be worked out. So for a short period of time, they got turned off, and then they're back on. But they've been back up and going now for about a month or two. And there's 3 of them in Tigard. There's one at they're all 99W. So there's one at 72nd and 99W, which is by Fred Meyer's. There's one at Hall and 99W is by the car lot, and there's Joanne Fabric. And then there's one down by Durham? Durham
Yes,
and 99W, which leads to the high school. And so those are on, and we've had questions asked people about that too, and say, well, why did we spend money on that, or why didn't we use that money instead and pay for officers? And the way that works is we went through a third-party vendor, and they installed the equipment, and then we have a set monthly fee every month that from those the revenue that comes from those tickets goes and pays for them to operate those equipment, pay for that equipment. So it's something that the city of Tigard, we're not on the hook for that, where the money from the red light camera from those went to go pay for that equipment. And also additionally, there's some money from that as well. There's, since the red light camera ticket, a sworn officer has to look at each one of those, issues a ticket. So the vendor will look at that, and if it's something that triggered it, and it's actually they ran the red light, they get sent to our police department, and then one of our sworn officers has to go through, look at the video, and then actually write the citation. So we've had to actually add an officer on, or enough one or more on for that, just one right now for that. And we also had to do an increase with our court system as well, because with the increase of red light citations. So that funding has gone right now to pay for those programs, for the equipment and the additional officer, and for the court.
And remember, the bottom line on the red light cameras is it's safety. It's a way. Those are intersections that had higher accidents, actually even some fatalities, and they're difficult for our officers, even on a motorcycle, to cover. They're just not safe places for them to sit and wait and try to get folks to comply with the traffic signals. And so it's really about a way to keep our community safe. So that's where we are with that. Okay, will there be a youth counselor next year? I think the deadline was May 4th. So we took applications for our new youth city councilor, and I believe there will be an interview process. And I haven't had an update on how many applications we received, but I think the deadline was May 4th. So there will be one, and stay tuned for that. Megan Turley is graduating from Tigard High School and moving on, and so the new youth officer will take office, if you will, on July 1st. So.
And it's kind of interesting, yeah. That's a 1-year term, so that's something we'll be doing every year. So if people are interested in it, missed it this time, next cycle around, look at it obviously through the month of April to go ahead and apply for that.
Okay, our movies in the park plan for this summer. We haven't made a final decision. The mayor, or the governor's in her press conference yesterday, she's recommending that gatherings, events, concerts, things like that be canceled through September. However, we haven't looked at the direct guidance for Washington County specifically, and we're going to have to take a look at where we sit in terms of the guidance the governor's given for counties and how they reopen. That's a phase 3 part of the reopening plan, and you've got to go through phase 1 and 2 first, and those are each 3 weeks long. So at a minimum, we would be 6 weeks out before we went into phase 3. So stay tuned for that. We're hoping to be as transparent as possible about how we're moving forward once we get the guidance from the state. And my understanding from the meeting yesterday was the guidelines should be posted on the Oregon Health Authority website today. So we'll hope that's correct, and I'll take a look when I get home and let Kent know where we are with that.
And I think with the movies in the park, we might have a little more flexibility on that. I know that we've had the Tiger Balloon Festival has been canceled. So a lot of these events that are a lot more of a bigger production have been canceled, just because they have to determine at a certain point, are they going to outlay a lot of the cash to do what it is to put it on. something like the movies for in the park is a lot easier for the city to do. So we might have flexibility on that. As Councilor Newton said, if gatherings and things like that change, we could adapt a little bit more to that. We've done concerts in the park before, and I'm sure those probably will be off as harder to line up an entertainer. But maybe when we come out of this, maybe people will have free schedules, and maybe we might be able to do something. But it's going to be the best way to do is stay in touch with this. Is we do have a Park and Rec Facebook and a page on the our website as well, the city's website, and we'll post a link of that as well. The best thing is to stay checking that out, see what else there is too, because it's not only movies in the park, but we do have a whole lot of our park and recreation programs we offer, things we do, and I'm sure they're coming up with alternatives of what can be do. So I think the best thing to do would be to get on that page and see what they're doing to adapt and offering.
Okay, we just have a couple of minutes. We've got any advice for struggling small businesses? Well, first of all, what I would say is we'd like to hear from you about what your struggles are. We're trying to do some things to provide immediate, assistance, like the CARES program. Next week, we'll be looking at some other things we can do to sort of alleviate or relieve, postpone some of the costs that small businesses have trying to do business in the city of Tigard. If you're open, please let us know so that we can post the information online. I'm trying to look at that regularly and go to as many of those businesses as I can. So, those are some really quick things I would say. Council President Goodhouse. I
think the biggest thing for a struggling small business, and that's kind of a broad term, but right now is really the time to with social media. If you've been on social media and you've been posting on social media, whatever you did in the past, do 2 or 3 times as much, because there's a lot more on social media. Send a lot more newsletters out in your area. Talk to other small businesses. I know a lot of the small businesses have been really getting to know each other a lot more, trying to figure out ways how they can help out each other. Really send emails out. People right now are really wanting to support small businesses and to get out there and help, but they don't know if they don't know if you're open if they don't know. So the best thing really is get your word out there, talk to people, come up with creative ways to go ahead and to serve people. But but people are really wanting to get out there and help small businesses and help out each other. So I think the best thing to do is to be vocal and be over vocal. I don't think you can be too vocal this time right now. I know a lot of times, sometimes small businesses or some people don't like to really put themselves out there or talk about being open or things like that. But this is a time to kind of put that aside and really be vocal about being open, what you're offering, what services you are, what you do, what you can offer for the public, and right now is a great time too to kind of rebrand or take care of things and maybe have not. I've seen a lot of small businesses that are cleaning up their HR manuals. They're maybe doing an add-on or doing some things for getting ready when they reopen.
And if you're a small business that is not able to be open really quickly, I would suggest that you let us know on council what your challenges are. So as we look at this reopening the community, we can make sure that your concerns are addressed. Okay, looks like Kent's given us the hook. We've got 2 minutes. So some final remarks. First of all, please vote. We have until May 19th to get your ballot back, and would encourage you to do that. We are looking for ways to stay connected with you, so please participate in our upcoming virtual outreach sessions. On Thursday, May 14th from 6 to 7, me, Councilor Newton, and Councilor Lube will be back here to answer your questions. And on Sunday, May 17th, Council President Goodhouse and Councilor Anderson will be here from 1 to 2 to answer your questions. Don't forget the Budget Committee meeting at 8:30 on May 16th. We're encouraging your written testimony about the budget, and we will summarize or read your comments during the meeting. So any final comments, Mr.?
And please just go ahead and reach out to us. Kent had posted our personal, right. my cell phone and Councilor Newton's cell phone and our email addresses. Please, any questions, anything we can do to help small business, any suggestions, things you think we might be able to do, please reach out to us. And just stay on the contact with the social media and the website to see what's coming up and going on. And thank you. Be safe and remember to vote.
Stay healthy.